So here on Mashima's newest manga, yes, he made another one, which is his third one ongoing right now, has released its first chapter, and it's kinda hype. It's honestly really good. It's probably the most invested I've been in a first chapter for one of his series since maybe Rave Master. I was invested in Eden Zero due to the more personal aspect when it came to Shiki. Not so much Fairy Tail at first, but I grew over time to get invested in it. But overall, really good chapter, nice action scenes, really nice set of characters that we get introduced to in this big opening chapter. And the very premise of the show is actually pretty fun, and something I was not expecting with how the main character is, which I'll get into when I get into the actual chapter. This video is obviously going to have spoilers for chapter 1 of Dead Rock. So if you haven't read the chapter already, go read it and come back, because I'm going to spoil the entirety of the chapter as I go through it. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps and shows you guys like the content I make on the channel, and I do want to cover this series as the chapters come out because it honestly feels very hype, and this is going to be a limited series, so it's probably going to be relatively short. I say max 40-50 chapters, so it'll probably run for like 3-4 years, as it is monthly. So I cannot stress that enough. It's not weekly, it's monthly, so it's going to take time with each chapter release. But I'm very confident that this is going to be a relatively interesting series and could potentially be Mashima's best series yet. But without further ado, let's get right into the chapter. So this chapter starts off with a character hovering in the sky, narrating as he says, "Welcome to the Demon Realm's abyss. Every one of you has the makings to be the king of the world. At our school, you will learn, work hard, fight, and survive. For those who are able to graduate from our school," as the narration in between the panels says, "in the abyss of the demon realm, where demons and monsters run amok, there is one being who transcends kings. He is," as we go over for a nice 2-paged colored spread with this character's introduction, as he says, "In my name as God, I will grant you the human realm." Now this character design is freaking sick, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. I honestly cannot wait to see what this guy's capable of, as he seems to be like, I don't know if his name is God or if it's just like a title or something, but either way, very excited to see what's up with this guy. As we then get a 2-page spread showcasing all the core characters in Dead Rock, showcasing the main character and all the side cast. And their designs are really cool, and I cannot wait to get into each of them once we see them in the chapter. We head over to the Demon Realm's 666th layer at the narrow gates where everyone gathers to the Demon King training institution called Dead Rock. The first chapter is called God of the Demon Realm. We start off with the special exam, as we get to see a showcase of all of the different demons that are going to be taking this entrance exam, and right away I gotta state, I like a lot of these designs, even though they're just like seemingly throwaway designs that Mashima just threw in to just give some life to the crowd of characters, with one of them actually being an actual main character. So real props to him. It seems like he's really getting into the whole like dark fantasy demon realm thing for this series, and I'm all here for it. As we get our first glimpse of our main character, Yakuto, as he's saying he's finally made it and he's definitely going to get into Dead Rock, someone shoves him over as he's incredibly nervous, saying, no, quit being so timid. The candidates gathering here are the fiercest in the demon realm. If I lose my nerve here, then I'll never pass the exam. And as he then immediately gets stomped by a giant underneath his foot with blood splattered around, as the giant did not intend that. So yeah, this character literally just stomped our protagonist in the very opening pages, which is honestly kind of comedic. As he just says to the instructor, "I'm sorry, I kind of squished someone by mistake." But all he says is just be careful from here at this point onwards. As we get introduced to the examiner for the opening exam, who is the science teacher, Maxwell. As he says, that brings the number of candidates down to 999. As he says that he needs to introduce himself as Maxwell, and a lot of people in the crowd know who he is. Apparently he is famous for using the dead bodies of students for his experiments. He goes on to say that the exam will probably cost them their lives, and says anyone with cold feet should leave now while they can. Some female students are like, man, I would love to be part of his experiments, which is kind of disturbing to an extent, while other demons are like, come on, we're gonna take whatever this test throws at us, we're gonna get in. As right before the exam starts to begin, Yakuto screams saying that I'm not dead yet. There isn't 999 people, as we had a 2-page spread of him struggling to just lift up this giant that stepped on him, stating that I'm examinee 726 Yakuto and I'm alive. As he then knocks over the giant, much some of the other students shocked, saying that he is strong. We get some glimpses of 2 of the other main cast members in the crowd, somewhat reacting indifferently to this scene, as the guy called God above says, well now. As Yakuto just apologizes to the giant, as the giant is like, why are you apologizing? I'm the one that nearly squashed you to death, are you stupid? As another examinee on the side says that Yakuto knocking over the giant inadvertently killed 10 people, so there's just a lot of death in this first chapter from all these demons. Yakuto apologizes, but is like, why the hell are you apologizing to the guys that you killed? We get a good instance of Yakuto's personality just being a relatively nice guy in a demon realm who's kind of, well, apologetic and kind of timid, but doesn't really take too much into account of guilt in terms of killing like 10 different people in this giant crowd. And then some giant bull guy says he killed 10 guys before he even got into school. Hell of a way for you to make a name for yourself. As we see this giant bull guy, who is obviously a demonified version of Taurus from Fairy Tail, as he goes up and says that he needs to kind of teach a lesson to Yakuto. As he then launches his axe, kills about like, 7 people in that single swing as he wants to intimidate Yakuto, but then with a single clap, God then shuts everybody up with a loud noise which hurts them in the ear, rippling across the land. As he says, enough, with the title card stating that he is the Dead Rock Principal. As the students are shooting bricks, Yakuto is just looking up indifferently towards the principal, with God just stating to Maxwell to begin the exam. As he says, this is the Dead Rock Special Exam and this will start now, with these rules being very simple. From here on out, all of them will be dropped into ant hell as the floor begins to collapse underneath them in a giant hole as everyone makes a free fall into this giant pit, saying that whoever survives and gets out within an hour will pass the exam. The students fall to the ground and realize that the hole above has closed, meaning that there's going to be an exit somewhere around this area and they just have to find it. As everyone begins to run to try and find an exit, all of a sudden these giant ant demon creatures come in, start biting and killing multiple students as they're just being butchered. Man, this entrance exam is just cutthroat. I think Mash was just having fun with just the fact that he could write a series where he's just, okay, I can just kill off a bunch of randos whenever I want just to show how cutthroat this world I'm making is. So that's honestly really fun, and already shows a difference from his other series. As one ant then chomps off an examinee's head, God goes on to say that demons who are about to enroll in Dead Rock should have no trouble against a swarm of ants, right? As Yakuto then gets up from being falling flat on his face, he says that it looks like they've been dropped into the depths of the earth, as from behind them we see the giant from earlier, who is very small, and apparently he shrunk, making it very clear that he can actually shift his size from being very giant to being relatively small. He introduced himself as the guy who stepped on him, and apparently he said it'd be a nightmare if I squashed any more examinees, showing that he doesn't really want to just squish people inadvertently, so he made himself smaller. As Yakuto says how amazing that is, asking how he could do that. As apparently he says that his roots go back to Thor, God of Thunder, and they're a family of giants, which gives off a trend in this chapter where every main character is a descendant from some sort of deity, their roots go back from some sort of deity. So that's actually a really cool thing to put in this like demon world story, and this character related to Thor in some way, which makes sense. He's got a hammer on his back, he could change size, kind of hoping that he has lightning powers maybe, since Thor is the God of Thunder. So I wonder if that's going to be something we're going to see later on in the story. The character asks where Yakuto's roots go from, he's about to say, but he says, never mind, I'm not interested. And he says, my name is Honey, nice to meet ya. So the golem giant shrinking guy is named Honey. And Yakuto introduces himself as well, but Honey just says, I know, you screamed at the top of your lungs right before we fell into this pit. He says that Yakuto seems a bit weak, but he'll follow him until they get to the exit. So they go on and start walking, as Honey just spins around on his head. He doesn't do this for any particular reason, he just decides this just to make someone surprised, apparently. So Yakuto and Honey begin walking, as Honey says, I'm still analyzing you. Yakuto asks what that means, but then a giant ant appears out of nowhere and begins to attack them. But before the ant attacks them, another character shows up, slashes the ant, freezing it. And this guy is an ice magic user with an ice blade. Yakuto thanks him, but then he just turns over with a cold look, murderous intent, stating, move it. As Honey says, that's Hein, the Fenrir, and it said that he put the 306th layer into an eternal winter, and he's an ice swordsman. We get a nice bit of world building lore dump stating that the lower the layer, the more dangerous and powerful everyone in those layers are. So the bull guy that we saw earlier was from the 27th layer, And Hein here was from the 306th layer, so he is immensely more powerful than the bull guy. Yakuto is impressed with how much Honey knows, and Hein just says that his brains and his data analysis is basically his main weapons. And he's looked into a lot of the candidates for this exam, as we get a brief booba shot as we go over to the next examinee, who is just burning over a ton of these ants with ease, just stating to bring them on. I'm going to grill all you ants to a crisp. As she is introduced as Freyr the Ifrit, as she basically burned down all the buildings in the 296th layer. We get another panel showcasing another character who is a main character called Raisin the Orochi, another character who only appears in this one panel with a brief weird instance later on, called Bevel the Hecatonchier, and then we see another character as she draws in the sand with her toe, then taps her staff on the ground as a bunch of dead bodies and zombies appear from the ground as they begin to attack the ants. If this wasn't made clear enough, her roots go back to a creature called a lich, but people in the streets just call her Mikoto the Necromancer. And this one single page singling her out, similar to Freyr, is honestly really cool, and she is definitely going to be a major contender. I like her design for multiple reasons, and also the fact that we get a necromancer in a fantasy story is something that, surprisingly enough, is not used very often in anime outside of main villains, and since these are demons, it makes sense why one of them would be a necromancer, and it's actually pretty cool. I can't wait to see her powers expanded upon in a literal fight against somebody else, outside of just these random ant monsters. Honey says that she's the one he's paid attention to the most for this exam. Yakuto's like, is it because she's beautiful? But he's like, no, it's because she's strong. And yeah, if you can control multiple corpses, it means that you probably killed a lot of people and other demons to make an army of corpses that you can summon at your will. She looks over at Yakuto and just smiles at him. Yakuto says that there are a lot of amazing people here, as Honey just says that's the main reason people go to Dead Rock and why it's so fascinating. Everyone learns power and knowledge as a demon in Dead Rock, then they leave for the human realm. What awaits after graduation is a life as a king. Yakuto asks Honey if that is his goal, world domination, but Honey just says, nah. Do I look that much like an honor student? He just wants to go to observe and analyze the humans. No matter how weak they are, they're still alive, and that makes him worth studying. As he asks Yakuto his dream, as Yakuto thinks about it for a second, but then Honey just says he's not interesting, as he begins to pull his hammer and begin to slash at one of the giant ants, knocking it clear out, showing how strong he is as well when he's not a giant, inadvertently and accidentally stomping people. As Yakuto says that Honey was incredible, Honey asks him, do you really want to get into Dead Rock? It doesn't seem like you can defend yourself, as Honey is then smashed from behind with a fist by the giant bull guy. Now, I can tell Honey is going to be incredibly powerful compared to the bull guy in terms of strength, but it seems that his body itself, especially in the small form, can be very fragile. At least that's what I'm getting from this. So, he's collapsed on the ground, broken. The bull guy then grabs Yakuto by the throat and says, it's nothing but trouble having some small fry like you make a name for yourself. As he says, I'll never forgive you. Why do you want to get into Dead Rock? As he begins to laugh. He goes on to say that folks die all the time in these entrance exams, and even after getting in, there's tons of runaways and deaths. Graduation isn't even a guaranteed, it's less than 1%. And yeah, this is a very cutthroat exam to get into the school, and he says it ain't for folks like you. Yakuto, struggling, just says, I have a goal, and that it's a goal that I have to fulfill no matter the cost. That's why I absolutely have to get into Dead Rock. I wanted to hide this power until I entered school, but it seems I have no choice, as the bull is wondering what the heck he's talking about, as Yakuto slumps his arm down and says, since you're about to see this power, it means you'll have to disappear. I'll have to apologize in advance. I'm sorry, it's going to be 11 kills, as he smirks, slashing the bull's arm, as we reveal his right arm. It is a dragon arm, as he says, dragon build, revealing that Yakuto's roots go back to dragons, as the bull panics and says that they shouldn't have gone extinct years ago, and that there were survivors, as Yakuto then punches the bull very ferociously with his attack in a 2-page spread, Black Dragon's Destruction Fist, as we actually see an image of Acnologia behind him. Acnologia, one of the main villains of Fairy Tail. And interesting fact, in Fairy Tail, Acnologia lost his right arm, and right now the arm that we see Yakuto dragonizing is his right. So this got people who saw the leaks theorizing, is this Acting Loki's reincarnation? Is he related to Acting Loki in some way? Is this series connected to Fairy Tail in some way? Later on in this chapter, we go over something about the human world, and I'm honestly curious, maybe Mashima could just connect this to Fairy Tail in some way. Or not. It could be its own thing, and I'm perfectly fine with it. The bull gets launched across the field as he says a black dragon. As there is silence, as Yakuto looks over with a cold look down at the bull, stating, "It'll be our little secret until I've enrolled." Now this kind of implies that he literally just killed off the bull. I mean, he straight up says this is going to be 11 kills, so he doesn't hesitate about killing if he needs to. Honey wakes up and says, "Wait, I'm still alive?" As Yakuto just says, "Yeah, more or less, this is only a temporary fix," as he just mashed together all of Honey's parts just to get him back on his feet, which is kind of hilarious. Yakuto then reveals that he found the exit to the dungeon, and he says that they better run as the timer is slowly beginning to run out. Honey says he can't run in the state, but Yakuto says to spin, and he spins, he gets to the exit. Yakuto heads over to the exits and notices Hein is injured on the ground. He got an injury on his right leg, and he can't get up. Hein tells Yakuto to leave him alone, but Yakuto just picks him up and says, "Look, you saved us before from that ant, I owe you this much." And he says, "Let's get in together." Into Dead Rock as they go through the gate. Now, seeing as this is the second person that Yakuto has met and he kind of saved him, I feel like Hein is gonna get close to Yakuto in terms of being a good friend or ally, and I find that really cool, and I cannot wait to see what he can do as an ice swordsman descendant from Fenrir from Nordic mythology, similar to how Honey is descendant from Thor or something like that. I cannot wait to get into this. But the exam ends, and with that, 7 people passed. But the status of those who failed is 985, 7 escapees, and 1 status unknown. And based on the silhouette, it's that one guy from earlier with the 6 arms called Hecatoncheir. We then skip to 3 months later at the entrance ceremony. The new students for the year are accepted via general admissions and recommendations. Including the 7 students who passed the special entrance exam, there are 207 students in total. And it is said out of these students, 2 or 3 will eventually graduate. God is then up in the sky. He says, "For those able to graduate from our school, in my name, I will grant you the human realm." As everybody cheers in the crowd, Yakuto looking sternly towards God, as Honey goes up to him and they fist bump. Following the principal's address, the students are assigned their respective classes, and that in this specific classroom that we're going to enter, 7 students who passed the entrance exam are going to be in the same class, and there are 40 students per class for everyone else from classes A through E. But Class F is only the special examinee students, and it only consists of these 7. As we then get to see all of the main characters in their school uniforms: Freyr, the Ifrit Roots, Raisin, the Orochi, Hein, the Fenrir, Mikoto the Lich, Honey from the God of Thunder, and Chako the Yantagarasu, who is just a little bird. Everybody briefly introduced themselves. I like everyone in their school uniforms, especially Freyr and Mikoto. Freyr then looks over to Yakuto, stating, "Look, you look totally weak. Are you going to be okay? There's going to be stuff like class rivalries and stuff." Makoto says that he is a member who survived the exam, so he can't lose to other classes. Freyr says it's not like it was much of an exam to begin with Raisin agreeing with Freyr, saying that's her Freyr, so it's very possible that he has a crush on her. Raisin then goes over to Hein and says, "Unlike someone who got hurt somehow and got wiggled out." As the two of them then clash swords, as Hein's like, "Killing each other on the first day, are they stupid?" As Freyr with hearts in her eyes is like, "A fight? Count me in." So it's not very obvious that she is a fighting fanatic, so I cannot wait to see her actually fight people. Mikoto goes up to Yakuto, stating that his roots are from a dragon, as he says, "Yes, a black dragon." And she says, "I heard that they were all wiped out, but to think that there was a survivor right there." She goes up to him with a loving look and says, "You got rare roots. Would you mind perishing so you can become one of my servants?" As Yakuto's like, "You're joking, right?" Honey talks to the bird guy as he says, "Yeah, I'm a student here, and I did pass the exam because I was in first place." And we actually get to see it's because he flies. So you can't exactly fall into a pit if you can fly. So kind of a cheap way to get into the exam. Raisin polishes his sword, calling it his princess. Frank says, "Who here wants to get burned and broiled?" As Hein says, "Do you want me to kill you all?" As Maxwell enters the classroom, telling everyone to quiet down and be seated. He introduces himself as the homeroom teacher, and before he begins proper introductions, Yakuto raises his hands and asks a question. With a stern look in his eyes, Yakuto asks, "Will we really seize the human realm when we graduate?" As Maxwell says, "Of course. Many graduates have seized it before now. As Yakuto asks, are there multiple realms for humans? As everyone's kind of looking at him, as the explanation goes that the human realm is very vast and large, much like the demon realm. So it's more like whoever graduates gets their own little section to reign over once they graduate. Yakuto asks, is that what it means to seize the world? As everyone's wondering what's he talking about, as he asks, are humans treated well in that world? As Maxwell goes on a rant stating, treated well? Or what, are you a human? We have no need to treat them well. They are the most foolish, weakest creatures in all the 3 realms, and yet they multiply as they damn well please. As Yakuto just smirks, says, is that so? Thank you for answering. As he turns his arm into a dragon's and smashes the professor into the wall, seemingly just killing him upon impact with one force. Very obvious that this MC gives no shits about what the hell happens, or by just randomly killing someone if he wants to. This shocks everybody in the classroom, as he literally just crushed their homeroom teacher's head on the first day. So it's kind of unhinged. With the dead body's head literally just smushed, slumping down to the ground, Jason asks what did he do to his homeroom teacher, as Frederick says, he's so cool, as Hein's like, have you lost your mind? Yakuto says, I'm sorry, allow me to fill you in. As we get this one panel just looking very sinisterly at who he actually is, his true side, as everyone's wondering who the hell he is. Yakuto goes on to explain that he enrolled in Dead Rock for one major goal, and he needs their help to achieve it, and I believe once that they know the truth, that they will all agree. Migoto asks what his goal is, as he smirks stating, I'm going to kill God. As we literally get a 2-page spread of the principal with a harem. I'm not going to show this full panel because of reasons. All the women are basically naked in this picture. So, yeah, no way I'm showing this on YouTube. He says, it's for that purpose that I came here, and this shocks everybody. Except for Freyr, who basically is like, I think I'm in love. And obviously for a battle-hardened maniac like her, it makes sense why she would just be all on board with whatever Yakuto is planning. Everyone thinks that he's crazy, that he has a death wish, but notice they don't all say no, only that it seems impossible. So yeah, what a hardcore way to open up a first chapter. And the next chapter apparently isn't going to be a thing until September, so unfortunately we won't be getting chapter 2 until September. Maybe the magazine's on break or something, I have no idea. But I am all but excited for this series. Monthly, it might be a good release for this because there won't be too much filler in the chapters, and we'll get a good chunk of story with each and every one of them. Each of the main cast seems very interesting and fun to just see interact, with very cool powers. Some of them we haven't seen what they can officially do yet, so I'm very excited to see what happens in this demon world setting. The whole school for that premise that is a lot in anime and manga has been done to death, but I think this one, even though there is multiple like isekai, demon world, academy thing, I think this is going to take an interesting turn as characters can literally die at any instance. The main character seems to be okay with just slaughtering people if it's for his goal, even though he has kind of a lackadaisical and pretty nice guy attitude, but his main goal is to literally take out their principal. So I'm curious to see what happens next. The action is probably going to be really good because Mashima does good action. The world building from the first chapter is very cool and very intriguing, and I cannot wait to see more as we explore the school in this demon realm. Plus this whole thing with Yakuto being a dragon demon with his roots going back to a black dragon, seemingly something similar to Acnologia, which is a really nice callback to Fairy Tail and a reference to that series. Whether or not it has any actual connection, I have no real clue. And since the human realm in this universe is very fast, there's always a possibility that, hey, Fiori could be in that universe, and maybe at the end of the series, Yakuto will enter the Fairy Tail world. No clue. But I'm very happy with this. The designs for all the characters are really cool, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. What do you think is going to happen in the future of Dead Rock? Do you like the first chapter? Do you have any theories of what's going to happen next? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Let's get the discussion going. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps, and it shows you guys like the content I make on this channel. Since there's no chapter next month, seemingly, I'll make a Dead Rock related video talking about my own speculations of what's going to happen and the potential for the series. So look forward to that. And with all that's said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.